Welcome to Galaxy Moth Podcast, a show dedicated to queer and trans books. I'm Moth, founder of Galaxy Moth Press. My pronouns are they, them. Today, I'm joined by author Sadhbh Frost. Sadhbh, before I share your bio, would you say hello and let our listeners know your pronouns?
Hi, I'm Sadhbh. My pronouns are advertised as she, her, but I am non-binary, lesbian, trans, so a good they, them is always welcome.
Welcome. Well, from another non-binary lesbian, lots of love, but I'm the they them to your she her. Well, I am so glad you're here. So I'm going to go ahead and read your wonderful bio that you sent over. Sadhbh is a non-binary trans woman who has written all her life, but finally found a voice reading indie books from the trans writing community. Her writing is heavily influenced by her love for weird horror and mad science, and while the circumstances may be absurd, the focus of her writing is on the individuals caught up in the chaos. She watches an alarming quantity of awful horror movies while drafting, which may explain some things about her notions of storytelling. Sadhbh wrote frequently for the Mad Scientist Journal, contributing semi-regular advice columns as Dr. Ort, and 3 short stories, 2 of which were included in the anthologies That Ain't Right and Fitting In. She also dabbled in writing comics, most of which were illustrated by her wife, Wendy Strain Frost, who graciously provided the beautiful cover for the Wolf Bane. Sadhbh lives in a small satellite community near a big university town, where she annoys her wife and their cats with endless amounts of nonsense. Okay, well, I mean, can't get any better than that.
That's me in a nutshell right there. That's
That's a great bio. I love it.
Thank you.
I'm becoming something of a connoisseur of bios as I read them on, on this podcast.
You've had some great ones that
Yes.
you've read here.
Yes, everyone's so good at bios. It's almost like I'm talking to writers.
Oh, couldn't be me.
Well, it is you. That's why you're here. So, Sadhbh, I'm so excited to talk to you and find out more about your novel, The Wolf Bane, which I'm about halfway through reading, and I'm having so much fun reading it. So, tell us all about this book.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's The Wolfbane is it's a story about the difficulties finding love when you're a depressive 30-something divorced trans lesbian who never leaves her apartment. Okay, it's it's really about it is, but it's about 2 women, Dale and Cassiopeia, uh, and they find strength in each other as they try to evade paramilitary threats. Cassiopeia is an escapee from a wealthy family. She's sort of the dark mystic secret of their success, and they are dead set on getting them back one way or another. Um, and along the way, the 2 of them find each other and encounter some really disturbing potential allies and get mixed up in all kinds of weird things, horrible things, mad science shenanigans, and all they really want is just to cuddle in peace.
Oh, I feel that.
Right, right? Leave us alone.
Yes, yes. Wow. When reality and fiction collide. But the fiction is fun. The Wolfbane is there's definitely heavy themes, but it's still just super enjoyable to read, like I will say. So, well, we happen to be recording on International Lesbian Day, which I was unaware of.
I found out this morning,
I
and
found out after putting on my flannel and going to the animal control and adopting a black cat. So, and I mean, we picked this day for our conversation, so go us. Well done.
we did it right.
We didn't even know. That's how lesbian we are.
Amazing.
It is. It is amazing. So, your story has a lesbian romance, as we have heard. And Sive, what do you look for in a lesbian romance, both in terms of, as an audience to the romance, and also as a writer?
Oh, wow. The biggest thing, I think the one thing that is absolutely essential, um, is that there are lesbians and that they are romantically involved. There's been a lot of nonsense recently with co-opting the word sapphic to mean that there might be a female love interest somewhere in the distant past or off screen.
Mhm.
And no, no. if if it's going to be a lesbian romance, we need them front and center, and that's that's pretty much all there is. I'm I've become really ravenous for lesbian romance since I started getting back into reading a few years ago, and um, I started reading. I would just go to Amazon and grab, whatever, $2 Kindle Direct um, um, ebook I could find, and you know a lot of them were fine. There were a lot of cis ones about bake shops, which is, I mean, it's a good subgenre. Farm working, lots of good stuff. But it wasn't until I hit on the trans lesbian fiction that I started perking up and going, yeah, yeah, this is this is the stuff. Um, I think it's because it's outside of the real world so much. I mean, not all of it, but you know, I love I love genre fiction. I love fantasy and science fiction and horror, and getting romance tinged with that, like, yes, please, in my veins, in my eyeballs, wherever you can find, give it. Um, yeah, that's I wrote coherent thoughts as notes, and I think I skipped right over every point to basically say, yes, have some. But like even like spice levels, I'm fine with anything like, really mild to, oh yeah, okay, yeah, that was whoo. That was intimate. You know,
Ah.
anything goes as far as reading it. Writing, I'm still trying to find my legs there. There is some, you're only halfway through, so I assure you there is some spice at the end. It's mild, but it's there. There's a lot of thirst to make up for it along the way. But
Well,
yeah,
I Oh,
oh,
please go ahead.
um, yeah, what I really want is to see them connect. Um, you know, sex is great. Um, love it. Love to read it. But I'm personally, I'm demi, so I don't really like. I can read about people just, meeting someone and having sex, and I'm like, okay, I don't get it, but okay. I need to I like to see, some connection on a non-sexual level as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're the third demi person that I've interviewed for this podcast. And I mean, I'm demi as well. Like I write a lot of spice. I really love it and enjoy writing it. And for me, I realized that uh sexuality, eroticism is a special interest of mine. Because I'm autistic and I've realized that, wait a minute, this fascination that I have with this topic that does not carry over into my action my real life. Like I'm not like out meeting people like like I have two people. I have a story where two people meet and they're having sex with each other, like, within, I don't know, gosh, maybe like an hour and a half, like, but I'm really fa I'm it's endlessly fascinating to me as, sensuality, eroticism, everything that goes along with it is really fascinating to me, and I enjoy reading about it, and so I write a lot of things that are really spicy, but I read a lot of things that aren't necessarily, you know, I might have a kiss, but,
Right?
it's definitely not essential, for me, but I do enjoy it, you know?
Yeah, same.
It's interesting to me, which I guess maybe sounds weird, but
Well, one of the things, I really loved when I was reading The Poison Fruits is that, um, the central relationship there, they've been friends for such a long time that it's like, "Yeah, okay, cool, I get it." I
Mhm.
can relate, I understand this.
Yes. Yeah, well,
And
thank you for mentioning my book too.
anytime, I loved it.
Sorry,
I
I
was
interrupted you again.
I was never part of the metal scene, but I've always I feel, like, close because I was way into punk,
Mm.
when I was younger, and, so, a lot of that kind of dive bar, setting, is something that I'm familiar with in concept, even though, I lived in very almost conservative areas with no transportation, no way to get there. But it's like, oh yeah, okay, this feels great.
Yeah, that is, that's how my wife and I met, so she's not a bassist, but there's a little bit of reality in in that story.
We
So
can't help it, can we?
no, it just you have to write what you know, and, also I'm writing it for other people that can relate, which obviously worked. I mean, it's the same thing with reading the Wolf Bane, like, I can relate to some of the psychological themes that come up in there. There's a lot of, family dynamics and issues that come up, and so just to get us back on track with because you're the guest.
Right, right, right,
I'm here for you.
right. I forget.
No, I'm just
I mean,
teasing.
there
Um,
is a lot of trauma in the pasts of these characters, and some of it comes out more than others. Um, I think that Dale, um, the trans woman in particular, lets her emotions out more uh, in her narration and thinks more about what she's been through and um, you know the kind of things that she's dealt with. You hopefully you can also see reflected in a lot of the other characters because there's a lot of grief, there's a lot of trauma for just about everybody who's a major character in it. And, whether they're good or bad, but they, whatever they're doing, whatever their morals are, a lot of these people have tremendous grief in their past or tremendous trauma, and some of them aren't coping very well.
Mhm.
So, it's not my intention to make, the villains be relatable and sympathetic, but at the same time, I felt that in order to make them more than just cartoons, because they are turbo evil,
Yeah.
that there had to be some really nasty dynamics in their past to explain where they got to where they are. They just chose not to heal and move forward and be decent.
Yeah, and that's a really excellent point because you have characters across the board, whatever their alignment whatever their alignment is, right? Good, evil, neutral, maybe not well, I'd say maybe. I could make some arguments there, but regardless, there are traumas in their past, there are things happening to them in the present of the story, and you make an excellent point by saying, like, it's did they choose to heal it or not? Because you don't have to become evil if you've had tragedy in your past, if you've
Mhm.
had traumas, if you've gone through things, and you can still be dealing with them and take a different path, take a different way. And that does come across in this story and, adds depth to the characters. But also it's just a really good point about life in general because we really as people, as a society, we really, you know, struggle with the issue that there are all these people out there that have not done any self-reflection or any inner
Mhm.
work or healing, and so they're out there taking things out on everyone else.
Yeah. Yeah, there's very much pointed commentary about the Coopers, the family of evil and dark secrets. That they are not healthy. They are not happy. They are miserable and involved even within themselves in power struggles. And most of them don't even have anything to do it for, to look forward to.
Yeah.
Whereas the protagonists and their allies are people who may not be dealing the best, but are trying their best to help other people and to connect and maybe a little to heal. Um, it's a comedy. I want to assure everyone it's a comedy.
Well, and I think anyone who has experienced something traumatic might relate with that, like, having that kind of, shadowy, darker sense of humor after, you know, you've been through some shit, you're like, "Well, maybe humor is part of that, how you don't end up evil, you just end up kind of like, a little askew."
I think that I think it's one of the things that really helped me a lot is learning to laugh at myself because, so much of the trauma response is building up walls and guards and defenses. And so, you know, anything gets taken as super critical and an attack. And one of the ways I first started to combat that before I realized what was going on is just acknowledging, like, yeah, that was funny. Um, you got me. That's,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah, like, if you pull your view out and you look at it like, "Okay, maybe from a distance, this is actually a funny situation," or maybe, like, in 10 years from now, it will be like
Right? We'll look back and laugh.
So why
Well,
not laugh now?
right?
You know?
Like, I tried to keep it from being an everybody jokes all the time, because that gets a little, "Really? All the time?" But, there are some the one thing I realized when I after I got my first draft done and looked back at what I had done and was like, "Okay, how can I make this coherent? How can I make all of this gel?" Is just realizing how funny Janice is.
Yeah.
Even when it's not trying, it's just the way it talks just kills me.
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes.
So so I was like, "Oh, no, I need to fix that." Or hear me out, lean in, acknowledge that some of this is absolutely ridiculous.
Mhm. And I mean, I also think the older I get, the more I feel like there's so much in life that's, totally absurd.
Oh my god.
And, it's just, yeah, like, holy heck, I don't it just gets, wilder and wilder as we go along, so
Yeah, I mean, if you it's sort of I don't know, for me, it's an extrapolation of, uh, the sort of joy that our young cat brings, which is she is so full of life and so full of constant energy and fun, and we're like, "You understand everything is awful." And she goes, "But," and runs away. And she finds something on the floor and just starts having a ball, and you can't look at that and think you're right, you know?
Mhm,
It's like, she has the right idea. Like, yes, be aware of what's going on. Yes, fight like hell against it, but you need to break the stress. You need to enjoy what you can while you can. Um, and sometimes that's dark humor.
mhm. Yes, and often trans lesbian romance.
Yes.
I think that, lesbian romance, really specifically like, I related a lot to what you were saying earlier about, getting back into reading and, I've noticed that a lot of the genres I enjoy, a lot of the writers that I found that I really enjoy are indie authors. They're,
Mhm.
often trans or non-binary, and just I really having all of that to read is just really keeping me going, honestly, and that's why I started writing. That's why I started doing this podcast to have those kind of bright moments. I guess this is like my what did I find what did I find on the ground to play with while I'm
Right? It
Oh,
really is, isn't it?
yeah.
I
It
mean,
r
when I came to Blue Sky, I was kind of just feeling out that maybe I was non-binary, but I mean, I had been out as non-binary for a few years, but I was starting to feel like I wasn't doing it right somehow. And I was starting to figure out that maybe it's because I need to hit the opposite wall and rebound back into non-binary.
Oh.
I need to hit trans femme so hard that I bounce back to where I'm at now. Um, so that's yeah, that's I was just starting to think about, am I really, you know, trans non-binary in that sense of like coming at it from the opposite gender I was born. And um I had a point. Oh, right. And I landed, so I was just like, okay, I'm just going to present. I'm whole clean slate here. I don't know anybody. My friends from Twitter haven't gotten invites yet. It'll be a week before I have any to give. So I'm just going to go for it and say I'm a trans woman, and I fell in with this wonderful group of writers, um, many of whom are trans or non-binary, and they were so affirming and so accepting and so positive. And I started reading their books, and I was like, yes. And, before I knew it, I was, last fall, I started HRT. I started writing Wolf Bane. Like, yeah, read, folks, read trans lesbian romance and you will be a trans lesbian writing romance.
That's the pipeline. That's the
It is.
dream. That's actually why this podcast is here, to get to help more
Yes.
more of you come forward.
Right? And I mean trans inclusively. I know I
Yes.
specify I'm trans non-binary, but to me, non-binary is trans.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
it's yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and I know that that's, not all non-binary people, necessarily say that, even though it is part of,
Mhm.
the bigger trans umbrella, if you want to think of it as a umbrella. And I like to say that I'm trans non-binary because this has absolutely been a transition for me, and more of, having an assigned gender at birth and telling people throughout my entire life, no, I'm a person. Like correcting people, like
Right.
when I was young, like when I was a child in the 80s, when I was a teenager, and, getting put into an assigned role, and then insisting with people, no, I'm a person. And it wasn't because I had bad feelings about any particular gender. It was because that's how I always felt. That's always what made sense to me. And so, you know, I was first able to say, like, I'm a trans person. So, like, trans woman, trans man, I'm a
Okay.
trans person. And then I was able to eventually, work through stuff and say, okay, I'm trans non-binary. And it took me a while because I had kind of a weird introduction to being non-binary, and I really thought you had to be perfectly androgynous. But then I
Right?
realized then I realized, like, okay, wait a minute, androgyny is based on, like, a teenage boy. Like,
Yes.
no one actually has a flat chest after, like, a certain a and that's not to I'm not saying that in, like, I don't mean that in a bad way. Like, I, like, 100% for top surgery, and
Right.
you can definitely achieve that. But what I mean is that particular white Western cultural idea of androgyny is very much like super
Yeah.
skinny, super skinny white teen boy, kind of, is what it's based on. And not everybody can look like that. Like,
Yeah,
it's a small amount of the population
yeah,
that can achieve that look, and, it shouldn't be the deciding factor, and I really had to kind of, like, work through a lot of body image stuff and a lot of realizing, like, "Okay, wait a minute, no, I am non-binary," and it's totally valid for me to say that no matter what my phenotype is.
right?
Like, I didn't pick that. It's just what like, I know who I am, and so yeah, so anyway,
Yeah,
long
I'm
little rant for you.
no, I mean, I feel so much of that. Like, I was, well, I am 6'1", uh, built like a former athlete. Um, I never was, but built like it. Uh, there was no way I was going to embody that sort of cultural expectation of what non-binary looks like. Fortunately, that's starting to morph some.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's amazing. One thing that opened my eyes was um, I was working with a, a person who was also non-binary, but sort of leaned into performing their birth gender. Like,
Mm.
wasn't didn't just happen to, you know,
Mhm.
well, I'm just me, but I, you know, don't dress up. No,
Mhm.
dressed up, leaned into it, and was non-binary. And I was like, brain ticking, trying to
Mm.
compute. And that really opened some thoughts up for me um, that I hadn't had before about what non-binary could mean. Um, so yeah, that's always learning, always
Yeah.
learning.
Yeah. Well, and it shows how important it is that we're able to be vocal and tell our stories and be able to say, "Here's what I thought," and, it turned out to not be the case, and I learned something different. And, I think this is a good point to, kinda come back to the Wolf Bane because we're really talking about, I think, shape-shifting in a sense.
Yes,
And we actually have a shifter in the
we
Wolf
do.
Bane and a really, this really cool take on how that comes about and what
Oh, thank
takes
you.
place. Yeah, so I don't wanna spoiler anything by getting more specific than that, but I am really interested in how like, the writing of a shifter character, shapeshifter, like, I would love to hear for other writers that might be interested in writing a character like that. You do this really nice job of embodying what that might be like, especially for her really specific situation, which again I won't spoil. So tell us about, writing shifter characters.
Well, I only have the one experience, so
Okay, more than me, so please continue.
but I'm going to be writing them a lot. So
Ooh.
yeah, there are 2 more books planned, and um, I will be writing various short stories with these characters as they occur to me, because I love them.
Mhm.
Um, what I first of all, I love werewolves. I should have mentioned this in the what I look for in a lesbian romance. Werewolves. First thing, I look for werewolves. After that, I consider all the other things that I talked about. But the the thing is that they're so evocative. Like, what are they really? Yeah, there's so many contradictory stories about what these creatures are, specifically werewolves. Not to mention all the other kinds of shifters that there are, and that always fascinated me. Um, and to me, to me, I was always fascinated most by the the kind of supernatural that inhabits a normal person, um, and does something to them. Like for me, to pick an example not from the book, to me, I'm more interested in I'm more interested in vampires where it's not the person that it used to be, just with no soul or with a new diet or something like that. There may be memories that influence, but to me, I'm more taken by the thought of the person died and now inhabits the meat suit.
Mm.
And there is another character that sort of dynamic plays out in. But so I started from that kind of point of like, you know, what if a werewolf wasn't, what if it wasn't bite derived? You know, something
Mm.
that's not genetic, something um, that's not a disease. Like I love the disease metaphors, but they've been done a lot. And I decided that what I wanted to do was sit down and really be intentional about what a werewolf was. And if I came up with something that has been seen, that's fine. At least I knew I did it consciously and not just because I love ginger snaps or another movie,
Yes.
you know?
Love, love, love ginger snaps.
Oh, it's so good. um, and so I sat down and it's not like I poured a lot of time into it, but I spent a few days just looking up various werewolf myths around the world and finding out, like, what do different cultures see as the origin of a werewolf and the behavior of a werewolf. Are they particularly vulnerable to specific things? Are they Dracula pets? Are they, you know,
Mm.
what are they? And I won't say what I did choose as the route because I do think it's fun to let readers discover what this werewolf is.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of I think both of my arc readers and my proofreader and my beta reader were like, "Whoa, where the heck did that come from? Holy crap!" Which is very affirming. I loved that. So yeah, not so I'll say what it's not, which is one thing I very strongly considered was the sort of embody the wolf by putting on a pelt, which comes from and there are a bunch of different sources for that kind of thing, um, where you sort of become animals by wearing them,
Mm.
and that was really intriguing. But for the for what I where I wanted to go, that wasn't exactly where it wanted to be. I needed it to be something magical, but somehow at least conceivably tied to heredity. So I did come back to that in the end.
Mm.
But yeah, I if I had to do it again, I would do the same thing. Just look at what's there, look at what's there in the literature, look at what's there. I watch a ton of movies, and um, I've seen a lot of weird, screwy things, and so some things can come from that. Um, I was kind of thinking at one point of taking something from a um, which actor was it? Boris Karloff movie, um, where in one segment he played a Vertalock, which was a sort of vampire that basically they come back from the dead, but their victims are their own family as they
Oh,
slowly
yes.
transform them. And I was like, "Oh, that could be good." And I may use that in in
Mm.
a future story. But yeah, yeah. So watch, read, um, compare, think about what you want them to how you want them to function inside of your story. Um, and I did that before I really had a story. I All I had was the concept of divorced transbian meets werewolf. They will hook up and scene. And I just started writing character studies of them interacting. And as I tried to work out, well, how does this wolf work? And it changed on me after I wrote the first draft. I was looking in, the beta reader had some questions about, how the werewolf worked, and I was looking at it. I'm like, "Fuck, how does the werewolf work?" Like, I thought I knew, but that doesn't seem to hold. So, I mean, that deciding the answer to that really reshaped how a lot of the second draft went. I
Mm.
I hope that made sense.
Yes, no, that's so cool. And so when you were doing the character studies, were you doing were you watching werewolf movies and doing research simultaneously, or did that come in
Mhm.
before the second? Okay, so you were doing that uh synchronously with the
Pretty
character studies.
synchronously, yeah.
Okay.
I started with a day of looking up werewolf lore,
Mm.
and I scribbled down a few notes. Most of them did not wind up being used, but, I made some notes and started thinking about it, and then, there are still remnants of the character studies in the book. Um, they became, the central concept of how they meet was in those character studies, and what their initial interactions were like, and what a total puppy girl Cassiopeia is. um, all of that came from there, and so I started writing and trying to just get Dale to a point where where it felt natural to have her meet the werewolf somehow. um, and wrote the bit in the park, and
Mm.
then um, I was like, "Huh, okay, well, put a check next to actual wolf." Like, I liked that. That works. And then it kept going. I don't For the life of me, I don't know why I settled on a blonde wolf. It just it just hit me, and I was like, "Yes, blonde wolf."
Yeah. Well, definitely would maybe, not stand out as much in the maybe from a distance, people would think
Yeah,
that's a dog, like, that's
it's friend colored.
Yes, exactly, friend colored, that's a great a color people are more used to seeing out on
She's
the
a good
street.
doggy.
Just a puppy, really.
Kind of big.
Well, she had a healthy appetite. So, what format did you create those character studies in? I would love to hear more about how you did that. That hasn't come up in any of these interviews yet, so I'm really curious.
Oh, sure. Like I've been using for years a program called Storyist. It's a lot like several other writing programs on the market. Um, it's basically a sort of file system for your file system slash word processor for your stories. And so yeah, I opened a new file and I think I titled the project Wolf Thing. And I had one text file that I just was jotting notes in, and then started took the main there's one file you get free called my manuscript, and I just opened it up, deleted all the template crap they had in there, and started writing Dale in her apartment being completely miserable and
Oh,
hating her
wow.
existence.
Is that
Yeah,
also Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'm actually amazed I managed to turn that into anything.
Okay, but it is relatable, like, being in your like, well, for me at least, like, being in your apartment, getting stuff delivered, not
Right?
leaving.
It's kind of based on what my life would have been like if, Wendy had gotten tired of my bullshit and
Oh.
said, "You know what? I wish you the best." In fact, when she read the book, she ca she came over to me and she looked at me with narrowed eyes, really suspicious, and was like, "Is Liz supposed to be me?" And I'm like, "Oh, fuck no. No, God, no. You are not an evil ex. No."
Oh, no.
And then she
Oh.
laughed at me.
That
Because
seems
I am the puppy girl.
Oh. Oh. Well,
But y
now I'm curious too with your character studies. Did that contribute to the multi-viewpoint approach that we get in this novel, or how did you decide on that? And um
Yeah. I That's a great question. It started as all third person, but I like third person close. So it was all third person on Dale. So everything was Dale's perspective.
Mm.
And I was noodling and writing the character studies and had reached a point where I really wanted to say what Cassiopeia was doing. But there was no way to do that without breaking the close third person on Dale. So then I had to really think like, oh no, how do I do this? Um, so, so as the project started morphing from character study to prolonged character study to, oh shit, this is turning into something and I'm feeding it chapter by chapter to an eager alpha reader.
Mm.
Like, how do I manage this? And I was just like, you know what? You know, I've read books where you switch character that the third person is on. I've watched movies all the time where you see what other people are doing. It's fine. So I did a close third for a chapter on Cassiopeia. And then as I continued, I got to a point where I was like, shit, I really want, like, they don't, neither of them knows what this Janice kook is up to. And so I was like, well, we got another one. So I wind up with this first draft full of third person perspectives from, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 viewpoints. And I was like looking over all of it between drafts going, okay, I can see how I can make the plot work. What am I going to do to make it more obvious that no, these are the ones to watch. These are the ones that like
Mm.
I know we see a lot from the mercenaries. I know we see a lot from the some of the villains. Um, but you know who and the stray cop or two who wanders through the story. um like, how do I ramp up and point out the fact that this is who this is about? And especially because I had figured out that I needed to start with Lavinia, and she's a major character, but like, without her, there's no story, but it's not her story.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh God, Lavinia's going to be coming first. Um, and, you know, then, you know, you have all these interruptions from other people. How am I going to keep this centered? And finally it was just like, you know what? I'm going to trust the readers and I'm going to make it first person on the romantic leads and actually amp up more of the third person stuff. So
Mm.
so I wound up with this mixed approach, and one beta reader warned me that, you know, she's like, I don't know. I don't know. It's kind of confusing. And I'm like, I know, but I don't know what else to do. Oh. So I hope it works for most people.
Yeah, absolutely. I loved it. Saib, this has been just absolutely a wonderful conversation, and I will have to have you back on, especially as you continue writing installments and short stories in this world. And I'm really interested to see where the shifter elements go as well. And so as we close, I would love to hear what kind of advice you would give to other trans, and let's, since it's International Lesbian Day, let's focus on trans and non-binary lesbians. What advice would you give to writers who are starting out?
Boy, um, the first advice is werewolves. You can't go wrong.
give
But
give her more werewolf, trans lesbian
yeah,
werewolves, people.
please, I'm so thirsty. Uh,
Ravenous. Did you hear her at the beginning? She is ravenous for lesbian romance.
so ravenous. Whatever you want to write. I mean, for me, I wrote something that I wish had been there for me to read. And it's not to say that there aren't. great books out there. It's to say that the particular weird blend that I had in mind. It's like it's hard to go ask on a community for like, hey, so do you have any low spice, high thirst, trans for werewolf, lesbian romance with mad science and weird horror? And maybe like some extreme violence here and there. Like, yeah, it's like, no, but, we'll see what we can come up with, right? So, there's a story you want to tell and it's yours and it speaks to your experience in some way and it speaks to your desires in some way. And people are going to connect, you know, people out there are looking for it. So really find a supportive community, start writing. The One of the things that helped me the most was having an enthusiastic alpha reader just keeping me having someone to deliver something to. I struggle with writing because of my ADHD, and it's hard for me to squeeze out more than 100, 200 words in a day. And I was able to do this in under a year because I had an audience right there that I could deliver to in short bursts. And then don't be afraid to look at it when you're done and go, okay, this was my first book. This is my first draft of it. What what isn't what isn't quite there? What could be stronger, right? Like I in my 20s spent well, in my teens and 20s spent 10 years writing 3 chapters because I would just perfect them over and over and over without getting anywhere.
Mm.
Don't worry about that. Yes, you want to make it the best that you can, but you also want to get it out to the world. And, you know, by day, I am a software engineer. And as you know from many, many shitty projects that you've used, the goal is to get it out there, not to make it perfect.
Yeah.
So, you know, especially for your first draft, just keep going. You know, if you spot problems as you're writing, just make a note of what that is and keep going. I had like a 3-page file of issues that I added to as I was writing, including things like, should I switch to first person? Or, yeah, like,
Yeah.
where did this come from? Or, oh, I'll need to throw in some chapters to explain this one. Like very few people write their first draft with all of the wonderful foreshadowing and and connecting all the dots. It's just plow through that first draft as quickly as you can and then look at what you've got. And like a lot of my first draft is still there in spirits and sentence fragments and certain events, but I rewrote almost every word. um, it's the first draft is so important, but it's not like you're building a house, right? It's
Mm.
not it's not it doesn't need to be the firm skeleton and foundation on which the second draft is built. Basically, you're drawing a sketch of of what you want the book to be or what the book might be. and worry about shoring it up and building it with the right materials after
Mm.
you have something to respond to.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And yeah, because it is drafting. It's everything, from building a house. That's a great example. That has a drafting process behind it of,
Mhm.
sketching out all of the plans, figuring out the wiring, figuring until you finally get to the final stage where, you start building it. And even then you might
Yeah.
often do refining. Like as you build, you might find, okay, wait, I'm going to move, we're going to put this wall here because we actually need it here, or we've discovered this issue with the soil, so we're going to have to like use you know what I'm saying? Like it's
Yeah.
an ongoing, nothing has to be perfect, and even anything finished isn't perfect either. And so I think that's really good, good to remember. So yeah, wow. Well, thank you, Sive. This has just been a wonderful conversation. I really appreciate you coming on, and I encourage everyone to get a copy of the Wolf Bane, give it a read. I'm really enjoying it, and I think that based on this conversation, you can tell that you're probably going to enjoy reading it if you enjoyed this conversation. So, Sive, where can our listeners find you and find the Wolf Bane?
Uh, Thank you for asking. I can be found lurking on Blue Sky for now, and um, I'm sorry, everybody, but all of these URLs have my name in it, so I'm sorry. Just it's SADHBH girl dot blue sky dot social. Um, and I've got a Patreon where you can get updates on when things are released. Um, at Sive Stories is my Patreon site there, and on itch.io, which is the only place it's officially released yet. You can find me at sivestories.itch.io.
Awesome. Thank you. And I will put those links in the show notes as well. So, again, thank you so much, Sai, for joining me. Thank you to all of our listeners, especially have really appreciated all the comments that have been coming in on social media. If you're listening on a podcast app that does allow for ratings, I would love to get a rating and review, and just really appreciate all the views on the YouTube version as well. So thank you. Well, Sive, I best wishes on the Wolfbane, on the debut, and I'm so excited to keep coming back to this world as you write more and getting to finish the book. So thank you again for joining me.
Thank you for having me. This was fun.